Make sure we're recording here. One moment. All right. Hello everyone and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about how you may be causing harm to yourself or others. You might be hurting yourself, and you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to be fixed. And how these two things can coexist, and how we can start to work with both of these ideas and hold both of them at the same time without feeling like we kind of have to pick one, okay? So one of the most common things that I see on the self-love and the personal growth and the healing and the integration path is that we really want to love ourselves for who we are, right? Like this idea that there's nothing wrong with us, that we're not broken, that we're not bad, that we're not shameful, that we're not inherently terrible, feels good when we first hear it. And we really want to accept that idea, and we really want to relax into that idea, and we want to live from that idea, right? Like all the practices where I'm talking about being with your feelings and assuming that you're scapegoats and assuming you're self-sabotage and assuming your ways of being that are harmful to yourself or others are actually trying to help you, or are actually survival mechanisms, or are just immature, or whatever. And this idea that we can love these parts, and that these are good parts, and that they're not bad, and that they aren't actually fundamentally horrible, and we don't have to get rid of them. It all sounds good at first, right? It all sounds good in theory, and I understand that, right? That it can feel true when we think of it in context of like other people, or when we think of it in the context of parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily hate that much, or that we don't think are that bad, or whatever. But then when we really get into it, for most of us, right, we really get into this, and then we connect with these parts of ourselves that are what we think of as like our worst parts, right? Like the parts of ourselves that are addicted, the parts of ourselves that are really immature, say in our relationships, and we can see that they're really hurting people, or we get into contact with the parts of ourselves like that are very self-sabotaging, and we see them as being like the reason we can't have love in our lives, the reason we can't get healthy, the reason we can't get the job that we want, and we connect with these like actual reality parts of ourselves that when push comes to shove, we have been trained for our entire lives to see these parts as bad, to see these parts as flawed, to see these parts as being the reason we're not happy and that we're destroying our own lives, or we're hurting other people, because that's the other huge thing, okay? Sometimes it can be a little bit easier to say, okay, I'm going to explore these parts of myself that are hurting me, that seem to be self-sabotaging me on some level. But then when we notice that there are parts of us that are causing harm out there, like especially in this last couple of years, and this last year especially, when social justice has become a huge part of the collective conversation, a lot of us may have walked away from that feeling like, oh my gosh, like there's all these horrible things that I was doing, or that I do, or that I say, or that I've been participating in, that I didn't know was harmful, that I didn't know was hurting people, and it's like being called out as being really horrible and really shameful and really harmful. And I feel ashamed and bad and guilty that I was harming people, and I was hurting people, and I was doing these bad, wrong things. And like I say, so we can get to these points where the actual practical application of seeing every part of ourselves as good becomes incredibly challenging, because we look at the harm that's being caused by parts of ourselves that are immature, that are hurting, that are traumatized, that to us look like they're just doing the wrong thing. And then that's the other thing too, is we can get to the point where we're feeling like we're loving these parts, we're feeling like we're making room for them, we're feeling like we're trying to understand them and what they want and what they need, and we don't seem to actually get any information, we don't seem to get anywhere. It just seems to be that we're just continually repeating our harmful habits, and it just seems like maybe this theory is correct for other people, but it's not correct for me, because this part It doesn't seem to matter what I do. It doesn't seem to matter how much I spend time with it, how much I try to integrate it, how much I try to ask it what it needs or what's going on. I don't get any answer, and then I just go right back to my self-sabotage and right back to my scapegoats and right back to my addictions. And it just seems like maybe this doesn't apply to this part, and maybe this doesn't apply to me. Maybe this really is just a broken part of me. So what I just want to first validate is that most of us, like pretty much everyone I've ever worked with, and myself included, and everyone I've ever loved in like a personal relationship and watched them go through their own self-love path, has had an interaction with a part or two where it just seemed like, no, this is just a bad part. Like, this is just a fundamentally bad part, and I don't think that there's anything good or innocent or not broken about this part. Like, I feel like all of us have at some point come to something where, and we may even get to the point of like, okay, like I've spent all this time with this part and I've loved this part and I've validated this part and I've given it what it needs or whatever, and now I just need to discipline it because it's just wrong. It's just bad, and I need to just like get myself back on track. I just need to like get myself on track. I just need to like stop doing this, and because this is just destructive and bad for no reason. And or like I see what it was, but like whatever, I need to just change. And so that's what I kind of first want to start with. It's just like, if you're sitting there feeling like you're hearing this message of self-love, you're hearing this message of there's no part of you that's bad, wrong, or broken, and it's resonating to a point, but then you're, like I say, getting in contact with these parts of yourself that just seem so harmful and so immature and so like they're the reason you're unhappy, right? Because like I think a lot of the time we all have one or two parts of ourselves that we have scapegoated as like the reason we're not happy, right? The part of ourselves that has the addiction, the part of ourselves that constantly chooses the wrong relationship, the part of self that is constantly sabotaging us at work, the part of ourselves that experiences that anxiety no matter what we do, the depressed part of ourselves, the overthinking, overanalyzing part of ourselves, the what we think of as the negative parts of ourselves, right? If we're not able to be like positive all the time, or we're not able to be whatever the thing that we're telling ourselves. We all have these parts of self that we think like, this is the reason I'm not happy. This is the reason I can't live my life the way I want to. And if I could just fix this part of myself, if I could just get rid of this part of myself, if I could just get this part of myself to behave properly, things would be better. My life would be better. I would get my dream job. I would get my dream career. I would get my dream body. I would get my dream relationship. Or I would just stop being so anxious. I would stop being so depressed. I'd be able to just live a happier, healthier life. And so, again, I just want to like really validate that if that's how you feel, and if you're feeling like, again, like this work applies to everyone except for you, or applies to everything except for this one part inside of you, you're not alone in that. And that's completely valid, because again, right, like the actual complexity behind why we hate parts of ourselves and why we think parts of ourselves are bad and why parts of ourselves are harmful is so vast and is so big that when we really get onto it, of course, there's going to be a part of us that just wants to believe it's bad and broken, and if we could just fix it, everything would be fine. Because that is actually easier and simpler and more straightforward than what it is in reality, right? Like why we're actually harmful, why we're actually harming ourselves and others, and the process that we have to go through in order to mature and integrate and upgrade these parts so that they can live in ways that actually are supportive is much more challenging than what most of us right now think we need to do to just fix these parts, okay? So that second thing that I want to talk about there is that we all have these parts of self that we view as being harmful and causing us harm and causing others harm. And if we've been in the self-love or in this personal growth or in the spirituality world long enough, we've been sold over and over and over and over and over and over and over again that these parts really are bad. They're immature. They're your lower self. They're not good. And don't worry, you can sign up for my masterclass. You can sign up for my seminar. You can sign up for my plant medicine ceremony. You can sign up for my whatever program for $111.11. And I'll teach you how to overcome it. I'll teach you how to transcend it. I'll teach you how to fix it. I'll heal your broken brain. We'll get you on the right diet. We'll get you on the right meditation. We'll get you on the right whatever manifestation journey. And we'll heal your limiting beliefs, and you'll start to have that life of abundance just no problem, right? So it's not even that you've just been told your whole life that these parts of yourself are bad and wrong, because you have, right? Society tells us the addiction is bad. The person who has an addiction is bad. The person who hurts other people is bad. The person who can't get their shit together in their career is bad. The person who has an unhealthy body, like, oh my gosh, heaven forbid, you're not perfectly healthy. There's something horribly wrong with you if you do that. The world has told us that these parts of ourselves that aren't making it in the matrix in a lot of ways, that aren't socially acceptable, that aren't whatever, supportive in some way. And then, like I say, even in the social justice movement, which has been very good in a lot of ways, allowing us to see the parts of culture that absolutely need to shift because they are causing harm, and there is systemic harm being caused, and there are things we can do as individuals to shift that. There's also been a huge, like, almost over assumption that people are choosing to be harmful because they want to be, or that they are like responsible for the systems that are harmful. And if we're participating in some way, it's because we're inherently evil and we're inherently something that like we're inherently something, or like we're cognitively making a choice to be horrible, rather than like we were conditioned just like everybody else. Everybody was conditioned. Nobody invented the systems that we have right now. Even if we're participating in them, we can't necessarily take responsibility for them in the sense of like owning that we are the cause of them, because we're not. Like, none of us are the cause of what's happening. It can be overdone, right? So culture and society is telling us we're broken. Culture and society are telling us that these harmful things about us are bad things, right? Like, it's still stigmatized to be an addict, versus us being able to say that is a person in pain, that is a person who is doing what they need to, what they feel they can do to survive. We see bad, weak, needs to change, needs like causing harm, yell at them, right? We see criminals as bad people, as people who are choosing to cause harm, and they're just bad and evil, and we got to protect ourselves from them. Again, rather than seeing people who are born into a system, born into a reality where it was very difficult and they didn't get their needs met, and there was a culture of these things for a very good reason. And again, it's not to say that they couldn't have gotten out or they couldn't have made a different choice, but it is to say that that would have been incredibly difficult and incredibly challenging, and society is not set up to support that. And so you see what I'm saying? Culture is telling us we're broken. And then we come to self-love, we come to spirituality, we come to personal growth. And personal growth gurus tell us that we're messed up. Spirituality people tell us that we're messed up. They say it in a different way, right? Like, they say, like, this just isn't a part of your higher self. This isn't who you really are. You need to transcend these false perceptions of yourself. You need to transcend these false beliefs and blah, blah, blah. And again, they're very subtly, but still telling you that, yeah, like, this is a bad, broken part of you, and it is the reason you're suffering. And if you join my program or whatever, I'll help you get rid of it. I'll help you overcome it. I'll help you transcend it. And so when we come to something like this, where I'm telling you, yeah, no, there's no part of you you're going to overcome. There's no part of you you're going to transcend. Every single part of you that currently exists is a part of your higher self, is a part of your potential. You're not going to get rid of parts of yourself to become more of who you are. Okay, let's say that again. You want to become more of who you are. You're not going to do that by taking away parts, right? You want to become more completely yourself, so you want to take things away? Doesn't really mathematically make sense, right? I'm telling you, every single part of you is vital for who you are to become, for who you have the potential to become. And if there are parts of you that are acting in harmful ways right now, you're not going to get rid of them to become your higher self, or your more mature self, or your more true, authentic self. You're going to mature them. You're going to nourish them. You're going to give them what they need that they're not getting right now. And they are going to become mature, higher aspects of you. They are going to be a part of the higher self you are longing to become, because they are. An acorn seed doesn't get rid of parts of itself before it can become the acorn tree, right? The acorn expands upon all the aspects that are inside of that acorn seed, and every single aspect that is inside that acorn seed is necessary for growing into the tree. And if you each take parts away, they can't grow, and then they can't become the tree. And I hope that we can see more and more that that is how it is with us. We cannot take parts of ourselves away and expect ourselves to grow and mature. There is no part of you that you're going to get rid of and become more of yourself. You're going to love the parts of yourself that are harmful right now into safety and into maturity. And that is how we grow. Okay, so again, we're told by everywhere that we're broken. So when we then see ourselves causing harm, and then the last thing that I want to say is that when we are causing harm, when we are in pain, of course we want to believe that it's a part of us that's broken that we can fix. Because that's a promise that we will get out of pain. Okay? When we look at our self-sabotaging parts, and when we look at our scapegoating parts, and we look at our depressed parts, we look at our parts that are hurting ourselves or others. Of course there's a part of us that just wants to say, I will fix this part of myself. I will get rid of this part of myself. Because that is what gives us hope. That is what we feel gives us that that empowerment and that agency. It's a hope thing that I will one day get rid of this part, and then I will be happy and all my pain will go away. And so we also hold on to that idea that something is wrong and bad and broken about us as a hope thing. Right? As painful as it might be to sit there and think that there's something wrong with you, for most of us, that means, well, if there's something wrong with me, I can fix it. I can figure out a way to fix it. I can figure out a way to get rid of it. And the self-help and the spirituality world and all these are telling me over and over again that they can help me with that. So I want to believe that I can just get rid of it, that I can just fix it, because that gives me hope that then I will have that life that I want on the other side. Versus I have to understand what this part of me wants, I have to understand what this part of me needs, and then I have to mature that part of me, and then I have to get this part of this part's needs met, and I have to figure out how to do that, and then that's going to cause me to get rejected in society, because then I'm going to have to be more of myself. And like the actual process of loving these parts safe and then getting their needs met is often incredibly horrifying, because to do that, we then have to start to go against all of our conditioning that tells us that love and approval equals survival, and that how we're currently behaving, yes, in order to get that love and approval is correct. And then we're going to start to realize and recognize these parts of ourselves that have these needs and that are stuck in immaturity and that are causing harm for a reason. In order to become more mature, in order to grow these parts, in order to expand these parts, we have to start to go against culture. We have to start to go against everything we've ever been trained to believe we're supposed to be and not supposed to be. We have to start to understand our own needs and get them met in ways that the outside world may not approve of. And that's going to be incredibly scary and incredibly triggering. So for instance, like I just want to give like a little example, right? We may have this habit of numbing out in front of the Netflix every night. And we think of this as like a self-sabotaging part. And we think like I could be being productive, I could be like starting my own business, I could be like doing all these things, and instead I'm just sitting there numbing out in front of the TV. And this is just like a horrible part of myself. This is a weak part of myself. This is a lazy part of myself, and I'm sabotaging, right? And this is a bad part, and I need to discipline it, or I need to fix it. Like I need to get on like a discipline program, or I need to like do something to fix this part so that I can become more productive. I can become more whatever I'm supposed to be. And we go on the self-help loops, and we go on the self-improvement loops, and we try to fix it, and we try to change it, and we try to evolve it, and we try to make it more whatever. And we just constantly find ourselves back numbing out in front of the TV. And we just like don't know why. And then I'm suggesting, okay, so say we actually sit with that part and we make it safe, right? Like the thing that I'm suggesting, which is this part of you isn't bad and broken. It has needs. It has needs that are not being met in any other way. The Netflix is helping you meet a need. The Netflix is helping you do something. So the technique that I always recommend, right, is that this part of yourself is good. We assume innocence, and we start to just spend time with this part. We start to say, okay, this part of me that wants to numb out in front of the Netflix, I'm going to make it perfectly safe and perfectly okay that I do that. Even if I do this for the rest of my life, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking I'm not reaching my potential, I'm causing myself harm, I'm doing this bad thing, and I'm just going to make it okay. That even if I do this for the whole rest of my life and I never reach my potential and I never get there because I'm numbing out in front of Netflix, I'm going to love it anyways. And that's horrifying and scary, right? Even just that. Because again, right, this first step in the loving our broken parts is making it safe that if they never change, we're still going to love ourselves. And that is incredibly difficult, again, because we will often look at these parts and be like, yeah, but if I never change, then I'm going to be in pain forever, right? There's that catch-22 of the reason we don't like these parts, the reason we're rejecting these parts, the reason we're trying to fix these parts is because they're causing pain. We don't want to have to accept them because then we feel like we're accepting being in pain forever, right? And I get it. I totally get it. I hear you. That's normal. You're not alone. And again, you're not incorrect. These parts are in pain and they are causing pain. And to fundamentally love and accept them and say, even if I am this way forever, I'm going to love myself anyways. I'm going to stop trying to change myself. It feels like the most dangerous thing we could possibly do. It feels like giving up on a future that we're ever going to be happy in. It feels like giving up on a future we're ever going to have hope to be at peace in. It feels like giving up on healing. It feels like giving up on having the career. It feels like giving up on having the relationship. It feels like giving up on ever not being depressed or reaching our potential or whatever. Okay? That's the first thing that's going to come up. When we really actually consider loving these parts of ourselves that are causing harm, is we're going to be like, okay, so I'm giving up. I'm giving up ever having a future where I'm not in pain. Right? And I just want to say, yeah, that's what it's going to feel like. Okay? And this is why I think a lot of people will never do this, right? We will be trapped in the self-help, self-improvement, trying to fix ourselves loops forever. Because the very first step, right, like the bar for entry of the true self-love path is pretty high, right? So that's the first thing. The first thing we're going to come up against is, if I love this part and I accept this part, I'm surrendering to being in pain forever. I'm surrendering to never reaching my potential. I'm surrendering to never having the thing that I want. I'm just going to make it okay that I am stuck in this place. And so I would just say, that is what we have to do. So if that's how you're feeling, that's normal. That is a phase, and I promise you it's just a phase. When we make these parts of ourselves that are causing harm that safe, like when we literally say, I am not going to try to change you, I am not going to try to fix you, you are allowed to do this forever, I just want to understand you. Like when we approach these parts like this, even if you do this for the rest of your life, even if you never change, even if you cause this harm for the rest of your life, I am going to show up with myself with unconditional love. Curiosity. Okay. I'm doing this for a reason. I'm not horrible. I have needs I don't understand. I'm doing this for some reason. There is innocence here. And we show up like that. It's going to be incredibly scary. It's going to be incredibly vulnerable. It's going to feel really like we're giving up on a future that ever is going to feel good at first. Okay? I promise you that. And that's normal. But like I said, when we show up for parts of ourselves like this, you will be amazed at how quickly, yes, because it feels like giving up is weakness. That's what someone just said. Absolutely. Right? And again, the world has told us that. If you accept these shitty parts of yourself, you're just weak. Because, right, the addicts are weak. The people out there who are causing harm are just weak. Criminals are weak. Why didn't they pull themselves up by their bootstraps? Why didn't they discipline themselves to not be like that? The world tells us that. Self-improvement, self-help, Tony Robbins, all the diet gurus, everyone says that to us. You're weak if you don't fix these parts of yourself. You're selfish if you don't fix these parts of yourself. You're harmful to the rest of us if you don't take responsibility for yourself. Right? There's this message over and over and over again. And again, what I'm proposing is that what everyone else is doing to try to take responsibility for themselves and to try to fix themselves and to make themselves better isn't. Because again, most people, right, are using these tools to discipline themselves, to do what they think they need to do in society, to do what they've been conditioned to believe they are supposed to be, to, right, control the parts of themselves that are addicted, to control the parts of themselves that are self-sabotaging, to just get over it, to overcome their negative limiting beliefs, and to like fix these broken parts. And they just over and over and over again, right? Like how many more gurus do we have to see come out as sex offenders and addicts and drug dealers and literally were never sober a day in their life, were sexually abusing their students, blah, 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 before we're like, maybe if literally the people who are preaching these tools are coming out as these tools don't work. Because let's be honest, right? You're the meditation teacher, you're the yoga teacher who's sexually abusing your students. Your practices aren't working. They're not making you a better person. You have all this discipline, so you practice your asana and you eat your perfect diet and you do all this. and then you're abusing people on the side because your stuff it doesn't work. It's very much like whack-a-mole, right? We're trying to do this discipline. We're trying to make ourselves better. We're trying to make ourselves whatever. And whatever that is that we're disciplining or that we're pushing down or that we're controlling so tight over here is going to pop up over here. Like, how many addicts do we see get off alcohol and then become food addicts? Or get off alcohol and become addicted to fitness in some way? Like, they don't actually heal. They just switch an addiction to a more societally acceptable addiction. How many of these people who are on this self-love or on this self-improvement path do we see taking responsibility and going for whatever, and then they crash? And then they take responsibility, and then they crash. And then, how many of our spiritual gurus that do we have to see? Literally, like, okay, I found the answer. I'm on the program. We're doing it. And then I totally fell off the wagon. Here's my super relatable, I, fell apart story. But it's okay because now this. And it's the perfect thing, and buy my book. And then 6 months later, I had a crash. I totally backslid. I fell off. But don't worry. I'm relatable. But don't worry, because new thing, right? And it's just like this constant shit over and over and over and over again. And it looks like it works for a little while. So we're all convinced that it works for a little while. But it doesn't work. Because nobody is saying, yeah, and then I never went back there again. I never did that again. I actually stopped being that way. I figured out what that part of me needed, and I fundamentally shifted my life in some actual real way so that I'm getting my needs met in a new, different way. So this is what I'm saying, right? Society tells us we have to do these things to be responsible. Society tells us that if we're not, we're giving up and it's weakness. But look at the actual results people are getting. They don't get long-term results. They don't have long-term success. Maybe they manifest $1 million or a bunch of clients for 6 months or a year or something. And then again, it comes out that they're completely miserable in their lives. It's not making anyone actually fulfilled. It's not making anyone actually happy. And then the people that seemingly it seems like these programs worked for, they usually become coaches, right? And then they're selling it to themselves constantly, essentially. And they have to make it look like they're living it because it's their job now. So I'm just saying, does this resonate? Are we connected? Are we seeing this, right? That yes, I get it, that it's what we're told, and we're sold over and over again that this stuff works, and if we don't do it, we're selfish, horrible, terrible people. But look at the people who are doing the discipline route. Look at the people who are doing the self-improvement route. You're going to find that they're all constantly falling off the wagon and having to go to the next program and go to the next webinar and go to the next seminar. And then it's even taught that you need to be constantly upgrading, and you need to be constantly at the next program and at the next gathering and do the next program and the new, because you have to be constantly on it. And where's the peace? Where's the okay, now you just get to live your life? It just, you see? So what I'm proposing is, yes, there's that initial fear and give up moment, because you are giving up on that promise that the self-help world has given you, that if you just do the program, you'll fix yourself, right? But when we pull the curtain back, we're going to be yeah, but it's literally not working. It's probably never worked for you. That's why you're here. That's why you still feel this way about yourself. You still have this part. If it was going to work, it would have. You've done it. I would say that. You've tried. If it was going to work, it would have worked. If it was going to work, it would have worked. Now, what does Albert Einstein say? If you want results you've never gotten, you have to do something you've never done. Okay? And again, remember, my personal story of how I learned this. I was 24, sitting on a beach in Thailand. My entire body was in pain, and all I could think about was how much I hated my body and how much pain I was in and how sick I was. And I remember sitting there going like, I have literally been dieting and trying to figure out how to fix and heal my body for a decade, because I started when I was 14. And I sat there and I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I can't keep hating myself for the rest of my life. I can't pursue another diet. I can't pursue another thing trying to fix myself. Like this constant, what do I need to do to fix myself? And again, I completely understand, because I was in incredible physical pain. I believed my body was the reason I didn't have my career. It was the reason I couldn't feel fulfilled in my relationships. I had scapegoated everything onto my body. And my body was literally, legitimately in a lot of different pain. Now I know, another 10 years later, all of the reasons why. Turns out I was very chronically ill, and much of my stuff had gone completely undiagnosed because I had hated and decided I was going to fix myself, right? I had also been shamed that my chronic illness was my fault and that it was a flaw in me and something I needed to take responsibility for. I followed it all the way through. You have no idea how hard I worked and how much I bought into that. And I almost killed myself with it. And when I finally said, you know what, fuck this. I can't do this. I can't keep living as though there's something wrong and bad and terrible and shameful about me, or that I'm weak, or whatever. And I said, I'm just going to get on my own side. I'm going to assume my body is doing the best that it can, and I'm going to learn about my body. Like a completely different take of there's something wrong with me in my body and I have to fix it, to I am going to learn everything I can about myself so I can support myself the best way I can, right? So it's not a giving up. It's not, okay, I'm trying to fix myself, now forget it, I'm just going to completely abandon and stop thinking about myself and just go numb in whatever I'm doing. Because I think that's what a lot of us think this is, right? We think it's like giving up and literally just, I'm just going to sit in front of the TV for the rest of my life and just whatever. But it's not that, right? What I'm suggesting is a whole third thing. It's not, how do I fix myself? It's not just, fine, I am this way forever, and then just give up. It's, okay, this is how I am right now. This is what I'm experiencing right now. I'm not broken. There's not something wrong with me. This is something that I'm going to use to learn something about myself. I am going to assume that every single one of my symptoms is a message, right? So this is why it's complicated, because it's not saying I'm never going to take action again. I'm never going to do something different again. I'm literally surrendering into just being like this forever and I never do anything ever again, right? Like that's not what we're saying. We're saying I make it completely safe to do what I'm doing so that I can better understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that I can find the reason I'm numbing out in front of the TV. So I can find the reason, whatever I'm doing. So that I can then support myself better. Because I'm not broken. I'm responding to stimuli that something is hurting me, and this is how I'm coping with it. Something is hurting, and that's why I'm in pain. I'm responding. This is how I know how to get my needs met right now. So with my body, right? I didn't just say, fuck it, I'm just going to eat whatever I want and do whatever I want and just be in pain for the rest of my life. What I said was, I'm going to start to listen to my body. And instead of when I'm in pain going, oh, what's wrong with me and how do I fix it? I said, okay, what is this symptom trying to tell me? What is my body telling me? What does my body not like? What does my body need right now? How can I support myself? What do I need right now? Where is this coming from? You see, it's like literally looking at ourselves like an innocent child. Like when a child is throwing a tantrum, we want to think, what does that child need? Are they overstimulated? Are they going through a phase where they're learning they can't have something that they want and they don't know how to regulate their emotions yet? And I can support them in that. You see, we want to look at ourselves not as I'm giving up on myself and I'm abandoning myself, because that is, I think, what scares a lot of us, is this, we're hearing give up on fixing yourself, and we're making it mean I'm gonna abandon myself for the rest of my life. I'm not gonna be here for me anymore. I'm just gonna let myself do whatever, and I'm just gonna be in pain forever, and that's just it. And it's like, no, no, no. It's a whole third thing, where we show up looking to understand ourselves, and we show up looking to nourish ourselves. Do you see the huge difference between I'm going to fix this broken thing about me? So we constantly put ourselves in a fear state. Constantly put ourselves in a fear state. That's what, every time we say I'm going to fix myself, we're telling ourselves we're bad, wrong, and broken. We're rejecting ourselves. And our nervous systems are wired that rejection equals death, which puts us into a stress state, which narrows our perception, which means we just do the same thing we've always done. That's how that works. So you're going to go in the program, you're going to do the thing, you can discipline for a while, and then you're going to fall back into your old ways harder than ever before, because you didn't actually discover what you needed. You rejected a part of yourself, you scared the shit out of yourself, you stimulated yourself, and now you're crumbling. Or we hear, I'm just giving up on myself, I'm giving up on ever feeling better, I'm just going to surrender to this horrible thing, and now I just suck forever and I can't do anything about it, I'm completely immobilized. It's neither of these things. Okay, so what if you can't seem to hear your body, trying to listen but not so simple, and then get frustrated when I can't hear it? Yep. That's the third thing about this, is that this is not quick. There's a reason what I'm talking about not being popular. And this is the main reason it's not popular. Because it's not flashy, it's not fun, and it doesn't work quickly. Because we're so programmed and so conditioned to not be curious, to be disconnected. Like, we've been systemically disconnected from ourselves. We've been trained to not be able to see the innocence in our own self, and to see ourselves as broken, and to have these perceptual filters, right? Like, that as soon as you're in pain, you just automatically start going into shame and blame. And what can I do to fix it? Because of course, that's how you've been coping. That is a coping mechanism. Shame and blame and guilt and fixing yourself is a coping mechanism. And it's so automatic because it's what you've been doing your entire life. Rewiring your nervous system so that you pause even for a second before doing that might take a year. And then another year to actually even spend time with the pain and just learn how to just kind of sit there and be with it and be curious and not get a message, but practicing that compassion. Like, literally building that safety with ourselves. It's okay if I'm in pain forever. I hear you. I'm here with you, even if you're in pain forever, even if we never figure this out. And then the panic that happens, and you're still just going to be there with you. And you do that maybe for another 6 months. And then slowly you get just these little messages, these little bits, because here's the other big thing. Again, for most of us, the messages we're going to get from our symptoms are going to be messages we do not want to hear. They're going to be, I can't work that career. This isn't who I actually am. This life I'm pursuing isn't correct for me. I don't actually want to be in this relationship. I'm never going to be what my caregivers expected me to be. I need a thing I've been literally shamed for needing my entire life. And I have to start giving it to myself, even though, right? When I stopped scapegoating everything onto my body, I started to realize there were a lot of things in my life that I was doing because I had to, because of conditioning, that were hurting me, that I didn't want to do, that weren't authentic to me. And when I stopped saying all of my pain is because of my body, even though my body was still in pain, and I made myself safe and I said, okay, this is where I'm at with my body. I can't really do anything about my body right now. And then I realized there was pain underneath that pain. It wasn't just body pain. And when I made it safe to still be sick or to be a size I didn't want to be and all of these things, and I fully made that safe, all of a sudden I was like, oh, yeah, I'm actually like really upset about this relationship thing, but I don't know how to say I need a boundary. I started to realize, yeah, I'm totally pursuing a career that I'm never going to be able to do. I started to realize I can't live in the Western world. I'm going to have to change a whole bunch of things about my life. So this is what I'm saying, right? This is the second reason. This, what I'm saying, will never be popular. Because number one, it takes time. It is not fast. It is not easy. Creating that safety with yourself, where you just keep showing up and saying, I'm going to be here for you, I'm going to love you, I'm going to support you, even if you're in pain forever, even if you never change, even if you're harmful forever, you're not broken, I see you, I love you, what do you need? That takes a long time. Building that inner resource for a lot of us takes a long time. Second thing, when we start to get the messages, oftentimes it's going to be, okay, now I have to start doing things that get me rejected. Now I have to start to accept these parts of myself that I really hoped weren't parts of myself. We start to see who we really are and what these things were covering up, what this pain was covering up, or where the pain was coming from, right? So the numbing out in front of the Netflix, you might discover a couple of years later, it's because you don't actually want the career you're doing. You didn't actually want to be the entrepreneur you've been trying to be, and you don't want to be in the relationship you're in. So of course you were numbing out in front of the Netflix. Because in order to keep living this life that you've been conditioned you had to live in order to get consensus reality approval, you were in so much pain, you had to numb out at the end of the night. That's how you were surviving. So the more you make that safe, the more you make that okay, you make that not the drama, that it's not a drama anymore. It's just, it's okay, I'm allowed to do this. It's okay, I'm allowed to do this. And literally, you start to realize that part of what was distracting you and part of what the Netflix was doing for you was creating that drama of this is a bad thing I shouldn't be doing and I have to stop it, right? When we make it safe and that drama goes away, all of a sudden we're not distracted anymore, and then the truth starts to come up. It wasn't even the Netflix necessarily that was your coping mechanism. It was all the drama around the Netflix that helped distract you from realizing, hey, I don't actually want to do this career. And I don't actually want to do this, whatever. When I make my scapegoat, when I make my coping mechanism safe, and I say it's okay that I do this forever and I never have to stop, and that drama gets taken away, all of a sudden, the Netflix doesn't actually distract me from what I wanted, or from what's going on anymore. You see what I'm saying? We're always going to find that these parts of ourselves aren't broken. They're calling us to a life we're afraid to live. These parts of you aren't broken. They're calling you to a life you're afraid to live. They're calling you to a form of self-acceptance that will make it so that you don't fit into society the way that you think that you have to. And sometimes, like with the body stuff, right? Like with so much of what I have learned about what I needed to do to support my body took so much time. And yeah, I'm a weirdo. I have to live a weird life. I have to live I had to kind of go it on my own because doctors didn't know. And like, it was just like little step by step by step by step listening. And I think that's the other thing that I want to say, is a lot of the time when we're in pain and we have these self-sabotaging parts and these parts that seem so broken, it's not, okay, so here's the third reason this will never be popular. Because the answer that we're going to get isn't ever going to be the answer. You're never going to find the thing that takes you from pain in your body to health. It's never going to be the step that takes away that negative belief and now you have abundance. It's never going to be the thing that moment of realization and then you know who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. It's always going to be little step, little step, little step, little step, no idea, little step, no idea, little step, oh, that didn't work, start again, new idea, try this, okay, I listened, this is what I thought it said, I tried it, that wasn't it, okay, I'm confused again. It's not going to be straightforward, it's not going to be an answer, it's going to be multiple answers over time. True transformation doesn't happen in 30 days, doesn't happen in 90 days, doesn't happen within a program. You might get insights, you might take steps, that's great. But when we're really on this path, it's going to be, you look back in 5 years and see how much you've grown and changed. You look back in 10 years and be like, whoa, my whole life is different. But day to day and month to month and even maybe year to year, it might not look like that much is happening. Because actually maturing and growing and evolving these parts of ourselves and getting our needs met is a process. And so that's why we learn to love ourselves how we are right now, because this is our life right now. We stop living for that finish line where we have it all figured out and it's all perfect and we're not broken anymore. Because we've given up on I can't be happy till I get there. We start to say, I'm working on this paradox, right? Making the changes I'm capable of making in this moment to help support myself better. And then when I've done all I can do, I'm focusing on being my own safe place and loving myself exactly how I am right now. It's not one or the other. It's both. We live both of these things simultaneously. So reason number 4, this will never be popular. Because it's not black and white. It's not just fuck it, do whatever you want, just accept wherever you are, and then this is just who you are now. Which is easy, simple. And it's not fix it. Get on that self-improvement. Do it all. Here's your 30-day program. Just discipline yourself. It takes 21 days to make a habit. Make a new habit and get rid of your negative belief, and then you'll be awesome. It's the complexity of, okay, I make myself completely safe, as though I'm never going to change. And telling myself that I'm going to love myself completely, even within that. Because that's how our nervous systems work. Love and approval equals safety to our nervous systems. We don't have insights and revelations and the capacity to do what we need to do for ourselves until we feel safe. And we have to work it and 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 work it. And then we're going to start to get curious. So we don't look at our symptoms and say, what's wrong with me? We don't look at how we're causing harm and say, what's wrong with me? And we don't say, whatever, I'm just going to do it forever. Unconsciously. We say, I'm going to do it consciously. I'm going to show up and say, yes, I'm doing this. And I'm going to fully embody it. And I'm going to fully love myself while I do it. While I'm in front of the Netflix, I'm like, this is what I'm doing. I'm making the choice and I'm not going to feel bad about it. As in, I'm not going to feel guilty and shameful about it. There may be pain that I feel when I do it, like the natural pain of a consequence of maybe whatever, our addiction or our scapegoat or whatever. But I'm not going to make myself wrong and bad for it. Instead, I'm going to say, okay, what is the need this is meeting? I'm going to get curious. If I were to actually stop this, what would I be giving up, right? Because sometimes, again, we don't know how to rest. We don't know how to take a break, all of this stuff. And then it starts to be revealed why we're actually doing it. Because I don't want to live this life. I don't want to do this thing. I'm not getting my needs for rest met. I'm not getting my needs for whatever met. This thing isn't actually bad and harmful. It's my immature way of getting a need met. And then we start to say, okay, how do I meet that need in a new way? And then that's a process. Because our nervous system is completely wired that the way that we're meeting our needs right now is the way we survive. So then when we start to say, okay, I'm going to try to upgrade how I get my needs met, as awesome as that might sound intellectually, our body is going to freak out about that. And we're going to have to prove over and over and over again that the new way of getting the need met works before it's going to feel good, before it's going to feel like the thing we want to do. But eventually it will. So it's time, discipline, over time, to show up for yourself, right? The discipline is in the, I'm going to be here for me, and I'm going to get curious about me, rather than abandoning myself or shaming myself, right? And then we have compassion for how we've been traumatized and how society has been set up against us and all the ways in which we want to take our control and we can't right now. Because that's going to be a reality. All the ways we wish we could take responsibility for ourselves and we can't. And we just learn to do what we can in the moment. And then, like I say, it's just this constant, the overarching principle is I show up with myself with unconditional love and curiosity. And then if there is something I can do for myself, if there is a step I can take, if there's some way that I can empower myself in a way that feels actually supportive of getting my needs met in a better way, supportive of me being closer to who I want to be in reality or whatever, I take it, and then I return to just making myself safe and loved exactly how I am right here, right now, because my life is now. And we do both of these things. It's not one or the other. It's both. Right? And we will become more community-minded. We will become more globally minded. As we do this for ourselves, it's not just going to be navel-gazing. Because we're going to start to recognize that we're more and more and more a part of a community. And nourishing ourselves and supporting ourselves and being there for ourselves is going to involve nourishing and supporting and caring for our community and our loved ones and those around us in non-codependent ways. It's not going to just be navel-gazing, I promise you. And like, again, I think a lot of the time the self-help, self-improvement, spirituality world turns us more inward focused to our own detriment, to everyone's detriment. Like we're just becoming self-obsessed and self-concerned in a way where it's not actually helpful to us. We're just shaming and nitpicking and over-analyzing the shit out of ourselves, scaring ourselves, and then constantly trying to fix ourselves instead of living life and being a part of community and seeing the bigger picture. So it's going to be a balance of these things too. Okay? So that's my message there. Yes, it's going to feel like giving up in the beginning, but it's not giving up. It's finally getting curious. And then it's going to take so much longer than you want it to. And it's going to be scary. And the revelations you're going to have are going to be little things, little steps, maybe big revelations of like who you are and what you want and how this life isn't whatever. And it's going to be a lot bigger than you think it is. The thing you think is wrong with you is usually just a cover-up for all the other parts of your life you don't know how to be yourself yet, right now. Because you've been conditioned through absolutely no fault of your own. It's not because you're not trying. It's not because you're lazy. It's not any of these things. It's literally like you have the fear of death in you to be the real you because of conditioning. It's not your fault. And then so learning to love that safe and learning to love yourself safe and do it anyways and get rejected and get abandoned and have society not like you, it's not fun. But over time, overall, it becomes fun when you can finally be yourself, whether the world likes you or not. But it takes a lot of time to get there. And our nervous systems are going to need so much support, right? So that's why I say this is going to be long term. This isn't quick. That's why my mystery school, 2 years. Right? It's not, we don't have a revelation and then it's over. I'm not selling you that. I can't promise you that doing this work this time next year, you'll know everything you need to know about yourself. Maybe in 10 years, your life will be really different. That's been my experience. Right? But that's why I say we have to learn also how to love ourselves along the way. Because I'm not promising you a super quick fix. I'm promising you a long-term learning how to give yourself a life that actually works for you. But it's scary, and it's hard, and it's confusing, and it's going to be a lot of ups and downs and turns and twists and not knowing what you're doing and practice and practice and practice and like literally like practicing the same thing over and over again for like 3 months and getting no new ideas. You're just showing up for yourself, loving yourself, watching the Netflix, trying to not make a drama about it. And that's just what you do. And then one day you get a little message and then you're like, oh shit, I'm really glad I didn't get that message any sooner because it's really scary. That's how it's going to be. Okay? So you're not broken. And it's not about abandoning yourself. It's about getting curious and compassionate. There's a good reason for everything you're doing. And changing is oftentimes very, very difficult. So we have to go slow and be gentle. Okay? The reason you're in pain is going to be multifaceted, complex. It's not an answer. Getting to a life that really works for you is a process and a journey. And it will feel better and better and better. There's no finish line you have to get to and then you'll feel good. It's always going to be every step you take is scary and then it feels better. And then it's scary and then it feels better. And your skills get stronger and all of these things. Okay? It's not flashy, it's not quick, it's not fast, but it's worth it. And it's not black and white. You're showing up for yourself, taking responsibility where you can, and then loving yourself for the rest of the time. And you do both of these things. Take responsibility where you can, as in support yourself where you can. What do I need right now? How can I get my need met better? How can I try something new? How can I comfort myself now that I tried something new? It was horribly scary. And then the rest of the time, you're just building that muscle. Living your life, building that unconditional love muscle. Okay, so do you have any questions before I close up today? That's why this work will never be popular, because it's not flashy and it's not quick and it's long term and it goes against everything we're taught, right? So that's why I'm here making these videos every week, essentially saying the same thing over and over again, because I know it's completely contradictory to everything else and it's confusing. So that's that. I hope that helps. You're good enough. There's nothing wrong with you. What do you need to feel supported? To be loved. Okay? That's it. That's the path. And you're worthy of love right now. This is your life right now. Where you are, who you are, whatever you're experiencing in this moment, you're good enough and worthy of love right now. Yeah, look at your progress, Lou says. Yeah, I think that's really important. Always look at your progress. It can be very common to get caught in just constantly looking where we have to go. But always look back at where you've come. Look, give yourself permission to see how different you are. Okay? All right. I love you. Have a great week. I'll see you next week. Mwah.